episode 22 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast, and one round of the Calder Cup Playoffs is in the books, and we're still here, which means Belleville Senators have accomplished a franchise first. They're into the North Division semifinals for the first time in their history. As we welcome you inside the Jack Miller Broadcast Booth and Media Center at CAA Arena, David Foote and Brock Ormond here for this latest episode of the Belleville Sens podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Toss us a rating and a 5-star review. That helps us to build the program as well moving forward. And make sure you're buckled up for round 2 of the Calder Cup playoffs. They open on Wednesday, May the 1st. And it's the Belleville Sens and the Cleveland Monsters, the AHL affiliate of the Columbus Blue Jackets, in, I keep saying round 2, and there's been some discussion about what round of the playoffs is this. There's been a lot of people who call that round we just got through a play-in round. I'm going to politely disagree with that. That was a playoff series between the Belleville Senators and Toronto Marlies, and technically called the first round. So I think we're technically into round 2. But either way,
that would make sense.
You're into the next round. It's the North Division semifinals. That's all that matters. And we're going to break down the series against Toronto for you. And we will hear from the head coach from Boko Imama, who scored a massive goal in the deciding third game on Sunday afternoon. And we'll hear from the overtime hero as well, Garrett Pilon. All coming up in this segment. And in the next segment, on a bit of an abbreviated show this week, we will tee up the series with the Cleveland Monsters. We'll also catch you up on what's happening on the other North Division semifinal between the Rochester Americans and Syracuse Crunch, because the winner of Belleville-Cleveland will play the winner of Rochester-Syracuse in the North Division final. So a lot to get to this week. Not as much interview-wise as we usually have, but either way, glad to be here this week, and really stoked, Brock, to be talking about a playoff series win.
Absolutely, and it was an emotional win, to say the least, in front of 4,000 plus at CAA Arena, and most of the Belleville Sens fans, which was great to see. There was some dotting of blue and white throughout the rink on Sunday, but let's be clear, there was a lot of Belleville Sens supporters, a lot of different media and scouts down too. I know Bruce Garriock from TSN was here. He got a chance to see up close and personal what it's like to be in the Belleville Sens rink, CAA Arena, and it was an outstanding game. Belleville, the funniest thing was it went in the reverse of Game 2. So the score was 3-1 in Game 2 for Toronto. Belleville stormed back to tie it at 3, and then Toronto wins it early in overtime. Game 3, same thing. Belleville takes the 1-0 lead. They go up 3-1 after Toronto tied it early in the second. It was tied at 3 after Toronto managed to score twice in a row, and then Garrett Pilon wins it early in overtime, 2:17 in. And set off a pretty wild celebration, to say the least, between these teams. But, it's all part of the rivalry. And Belleville and Toronto, it's so great to see the Sens pull out a massive victory against a Marlies team that has been a thorn in their side right from the very beginning of the time that Belleville first came in the league in 2017. And, the effort was so great. And, maybe a bit of a downturn there in that third period. But the Marlies kept pushing, and they kept warding them off. They did get that tying goal, but they came out flying in overtime. That save from Mads Søgaard with the right pad, right in the first minute, was the catalyst right there. If he doesn't make that save, and biggest thing is if there's nobody there to clear that rebound, then Toronto probably sticks it home, because there was a half-open net there staring in the face of a Marlies player. So, and then Pilon goes down, and what can you say about Garrett Pilon? So clutch with a capital C, 3 goals, 2 to tie against Toronto in Game 2, and then he scores the big overtime winner. And a bit of history, like we kept saying all throughout Sunday, history was made for this Belleville Sens franchise, and you could tell the guys really had a lot of feeling for it. It meant a lot to them for sure. They understand the gravity of the situation, and these guys certainly were so proud to have these fans behind them cheering them on and give them that big victory. And like we said, I mean, we had to expect something to happen, and at the end of the game, Boko Imama, Angus Cruikshank, Kyle Clifford, all of them got involved in it. And it was quite the scene, but in the end, Belleville gets the last laugh, like Boko said post-game on Sunday.
Yeah, there's been a lot of focus on that handshake line and the events surrounding it, and we're not going to dive too much into things other than I will just say that the clip that's making the rounds about Kyle Clifford being escorted away from the handshake. That was one of the last things to happen in the whole kerfuffle at the end of the game. TSN 1200 shared the clip, the full clip, basically, which was from the goal right through to when we said goodbye to those listening in Ottawa that night. And it covers everything. And the sequence of events is basically Belleville scores the game-winning goal. They're celebrating. There's some mix-up involving Zach Solo, who had been a thorn in the side all season long for the Belleville Senators. Mix-up with him and one of the Sens players. Everybody kind of gets in. The refs are going to try to send everybody off the ice and not worry about the handshake. And then Logan Shaw, being the class act that he is, the captain of the Toronto Marlies, says, no way. We got to do this right. We're going to shake hands. This is what we're going to do. Gets everybody together, and then there was another exchange between Boko Imama, it seems, and Kyle Clifford that kind of sent Clifford off. And again, that's all we know as far as specifics, as far as what happened. We're sitting up here. We're not down there. We don't know what's said. We don't know, the histories or how deep they go outside of what we see on the ice. All we do know is that the handshake line is not the place to be trying to get back at guys, and I think that's kind of where a lot of my emotion came from at an emotional moment, and I think that's where both of those guys were kind of at as well. It just wasn't the place or time. If they didn't settle it during the series, you can't just try to settle it when it's done. So, that was a little bit of a dark spot on what is the brightest time right now in Belleville Sens history, and I think we need to move on and look at that. The fact that the Senators played a really tight playoff series. They it was only 3 games, but the amount of experience that they would have gained from these 180-plus minutes of hockey is going to, do wonders, I think, for this team on this playoff run and beyond.
Yeah, agreed. And the Belleville Sens certainly showed it when you got the 2 rookies, Zach Ostapchuk and Tyler Clevin, playing probably the best games they've ever played. And they were getting strong down the stretch. And they come into this series and they played one heck of a 3 games, with Clevin scoring a beauty goal for the game winner in Game 1. Ostapchuk scoring the first goal of the playoffs in Game 1 as well, just before that in the first period. And, those 2 guys, you can't imagine how valuable that experience is just to get in, play in a series like that, and especially in a heated 3-game set. It's a short series, so you don't have a whole lot of time to think about it. You go in against the Marlies, you play them, and you give them a hard jolt, and overall, the play was outstanding from those guys, and of course the vets should be commended as well, with guys like Josh Curry coming back from ECHL Sweden, and then you got Matt Highmore in there helping out. Garrett Pilon, of course, has that Calder Cup experience, and that's another thing that was so huge about that goal and how Pilon just stepped in there. He's not afraid of the spotlight, to say the least. He's not afraid to go in there and make an impact and show exactly why he's a Calder Cup champion. He just won it last year with Hershey, but he comes in to Belleville and he brings that added valuable experience that has been so huge for this team. And during the season, you could tell every time the Belleville Sens were winning, it was usually Garrett Pilon stepping in and contributing, had a career high in points, tied for career high in goals, and then he scores the most points out of any Belleville Senator during that first round series with 4. So all in all, that's the kind of experience that is so invaluable to have. And those young guys like Ostapchuk, Clevin, Donovan Sabrango, even the guys that didn't play, Kyle Betts, Taryn Fizer, Oscar Pedersen, Brennan Saulnier, those guys certainly, even from a distance, from afar, and even just listening to what's said in the dressing room, they know what's at stake, and it's because of the veteran guys that have really stabilized things and really punctuated their emphasis on what needs to happen if they want to win. And Garrett Pilon said it after the game as well on Sunday. You can't get too high, can't get too low. Emotions, you have to manage them, and you have to just push forward and give yourself some grace when there's mistakes, and there's not a whole lot of time to give yourself some grace, but the Sens certainly deserve every single accolade that comes to them, and that experience will only serve them well throughout the playoffs and next year moving forward in their careers.
Tickets are on sale now for Games 1 and 2 of the North Division semifinals being played at CAA Arena on Wednesday, May 1st, Friday, May 3rd. The season will shift back to Cleveland at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse next week. And Game 3 is scheduled on Wednesday, May 8th. Games 4 and 5, if necessary. Those dates and times are technically still up in the air because the Cleveland Cavaliers, who share the building with the Cleveland Monsters, are still in the NBA playoffs as well. Well, more on that coming up later on in the program. But want to keep breaking down this Toronto series because Game 1, the Senators are on home ice. They basically dominate the Marlies. They beat them 3-1. You mentioned it. Zach Ostapchuk and Tyler Clevin score. Josh Curry picks up a goal as well. And then they go into Toronto on Friday of last week. They have that really strange game where they hit no less than 5 posts. They had 1 goal called back under review. They had another potential goal not get reviewed to see if it had crossed the line. You had Kyle Clifford getting a game misconduct for hitting Tyler Clevin into the wall. Clevin left the game but came back. You had Angus Crookshank apparently getting hurt at one point, leaving the game and coming back. You've got the Marlies missing the empty netter with under a minute left, and then Belleville scoring to tie it with under a minute left and forcing overtime, and then a really crummy overtime winner for the Marlies inside a minute of the extra frame to put an end to Game 2. And, Belleville could have packed it in at that point and been like, look, if all of that's going to go against us in Game 2, what's going to go right in Game 3? But that was not the attitude they took. They came into Game 3 confident. Again, I believe the home ice piece of that was important. You said it, Brock. This building was packed. There wasn't a lot of Marlies fans here. It was a very pro-Sens crowd, and it made a massive difference, especially when Toronto made that comeback, tied the game to force overtime, and then Belleville get the win. If not for a heavy Sens fan-laden crowd, it could have been a different outcome just in the way the atmosphere in the building could have shifted, but it didn't, and it didn't shift on the bench, and this team just continued to do what it's done all year, and that is stick with it and not quit. And they've got the results here as they're into round 2.
Yeah, the fan support is so crucial, and anybody that says that it doesn't help to a degree or will a team to victory is lying, because it really does. And that pro-black, red, and white crowd was outstanding on Sunday. And again, people have been saying it, that if you're not inspired to come out to another game next round or next season because of that, then it's unbelievable. Like you're missing out, because it's been incredible all season, really. And the Belleville Sens have been great at home, and I mentioned it in the opening there with you guys on Sunday. 23 victories at home this season, as opposed to just 12 regulation losses. That's impressive stuff for a team that, kind of gets looked at as the lower end of the totem pole in terms of ranks. Like the CAA Arena only seats about 4,500. It's not a whole lot of seats, but when this building is full, it can be as loud as the 10,000 seat rink in Cleveland that hosts, the Monsters and the NBA teams. So, fan support is so crucial, and the Belleville Sens certainly were proud of that, and they mentioned it too. Like Matt Sogard mentioned it before. Garrett Pilon alluded to it. Boko Imama even said too, like the energy level was incredible, and it really willed them and got them up for that game, like they already weren't up for it already. But it was an outstanding effort, and the Belleville Senators should be extremely proud of that accomplishment. Of course, the job's not over yet, though, and they got to hope that the fans will come out and support them. 3,000, 4,000 strong come next series.
Yeah, we'll see how things go moving into round 2. This segment got a little long, so why don't we break it up? We do have some audio to play. We want to get you the post-game reaction from Boko Imama and Garrett Pilon and Dave Bell after the Game 3 win on Sunday afternoon. A little bit of thought on Cleveland as well, and then we'll have more thoughts on Cleveland later on in the show. We'll leave you on this segment with Boko Imama's first of the playoffs. This goal really got things going on Sunday afternoon. This time they connect. Halliday hands it off for Larson into the slot for Imama. He scores! Boko Imama's first of the playoffs. The Senators are on the board first in Game 3.
Toronto was caught running around trying to hit everything that moves, and the
Stay ahead of the game. Plan now for the next season of Belleville Senators hockey. 2024-25 renewals and new seat packages are on sale now. Visit BellevilleSens.com to receive information on pricing and learn about the exclusive benefits season seat members receive. Because you want to be in on all Sens hockey action. Plan to get in the game. More on season seat memberships at BellevilleSens.com. Go Sens, go!
Moving along on episode number 22, season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. David Footbrock, Ormond here. We are continuing to recap the AHL North Division first round series between the Belleville Sens and Toronto Marlies, which saw the Senators knock off their divisional rivals in 3 games, 2 of them needing overtime, and now setting up a North Division semifinal with the Cleveland Monsters, who were the regular season champions in the North Division. We'll preview the series in a little bit. We want to take a few moments to get some audio out from after the game on Sunday afternoon, after Game 3. And you may have heard these if you're cruising around the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network, the Sens YouTube page, etc. But we want to make sure we get you the thoughts from head coach Dave Bell, overtime hero Garrett Pilon, and maybe we'll start with the guy who was goal you just heard before the break. Boko Imama was a factor, to say the least, in the series for sure, in the game and all season long for the Belleville Senators. The Montreal native scoring his first of the playoffs to open things up on Sunday. And didn't use his fists as much as perhaps we thought. And obviously still doing his part to help this team be successful. Let's just kick it off with Boko Imama, and then we'll have some thoughts about what Boko had to say here on episode 22 of Season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast.
With the Sens forward, Boko Imama scores the first goal of the game. Let's get thoughts on the win and what this means for the team, first of all.
Oh, for sure, it's huge for the team. We want to have a lot of success in playoffs, and with this win tonight, we're definitely on the right path.
You get the first goal of the game. What was that feeling like for you to get this crowd electrified and to start things off?
Oh, it was great, especially with the crowd we had tonight, a lot of energy. It was just easy to get into it early, and having the goal was just a little extra, a little extra plus.
Do you think that helped set the tone, though, Boko, like being able to get off to that kind of start? You knew you had to come out quick.
Absolutely, especially coming here, back at home. I definitely wanted to set the tone. Obviously, in my way, usually it's physically, but when I can go on the score sheet for the team, it's also very nice.
What do you think the key was to that victory? You think you kind of had to ride the wave a little bit and stay even-keeled?
Absolutely. We just wanted to stick to our game plan, stick to our identity, and just control our emotions. I think Game 2, we probably give them a little bit too much attention, and now I feel like we're just focused on our team and what was going on in our locker room.
So when you come in after 60 minutes, it's 3-3. What's set in there?
It just obviously the coach kind of reminded us, our game plan, just not cheating the game and everything, but those moments are just so great. I think everybody plays for those moments, so it's kind of easy to just get going yourself and just stay focused and obviously try to make something happen and close off the game.
I mean, this rivalry a little bit. What does it mean to beat these guys? It's a battle of Ontario.
Absolutely. No, it feels great. It's my first year, in that battle, and I can promise you that I don't like them too much, and I'm very happy that we got the win.
Can I ask you about, I said, I've done this for a long time, I've never seen that kind of stuff in a handshake line. Did that kind of take you off guard, or? I mean,
things happen. We didn't start anything, right? We were minding our business. I guess they couldn't just, live with that fact, and they did what they wanted to do. We just brushed it off. We have work to do, so we just let that go.
Good.
Sends forward Boko Imama, calm and collected as ever after a exciting game. Big moment at the end. The other voice you heard was Bruce Garriock from Post Media. So we were really happy to have him covering the game on Sunday as well and helping to get some clips from the players too. You know what? The one thing I think that I gather from that interview, Brock, is that all of that post-game stuff that everybody's making such a big deal about, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter now. The Sens are moving on. Like we said on Sunday, like Boko, you just heard from him, this team has work to do. They're not letting the outside noise and the antics of a team they don't have to worry about anymore have any impact on their mindset moving forward.
Yeah, that's right. And Boko mentioned the same thing as Garrett Pilon. You'll hear from him later on too. He controlled his. You got to control your emotions, and yeah, Boko is the type of guy that can get under your skin and play the tough role. But again, Kyle Clifford's job is just to stay calm and composed in the handshake line. He couldn't do that. So obviously, there's other things going on behind the scenes and in the between the benches and that we're not privy to. But either way, Boko Imama had the right attitude about it, and he's a guy that is a smart guy. Knows how to play the game. He knows, like you said, how to get under people's skin, but he also is smart enough to know when to let things go. And he said about as perfect of a thing as you could. We got work to do, so we just got to let it go. And we got more hockey to play while the Marlies are out golfing. That's pretty much all there is to it. And Boko's first goal rocked the house, and he got the whole thing started. And he played an outstanding game. Physically, he was still very much present. Didn't have to drop the gloves, though. And at this point, when it's in the playoffs, you have to pick your spots when you want to fight, because if you have a fight at a bad moment of the game, it can ruin the momentum for a whole series potentially. If you get in your head like that, if you pick a fight at a good time, it can galvanize a team. So for Boko Imama, he's smart enough to know when to fly the mitts off and when to just keep things cool. And his veteran calm, veteran presence at 27, 28 years old helped work it out for Belleville on Sunday.
I find it funny. You said, usually I set the tone physically, but to score, it's nice. It's nice for Boko. It's a lot more than nice for the Belleville Senators. When you can get a guy like Boko Imama contributing on the score sheet in the postseason, it's invaluable to have that kind of depth scoring. We'll see if he can keep it up, and we'll see who else gets hot, because there are a handful of guys who have not quite gotten firing in these playoffs, including Angus Crookshank, who's only got 1 point. Matt Highmore is pointless through 3 games. Cole Reinhardt and Yuri Smakel are both pointless through 3 games. So there are some guys waiting in the wings that still could get hot here, and Boko Imama, one of them, hoping to continue with that trend. One guy who is already red hot, and as Brock kind of alluded to earlier on in the program, has been for weeks, has been basically since joining the Belleville Senators from the defending Calder Cup champion Hershey Bears at the start of the season. Garrett Pilon, 3 goals, 1 assist in 3 games of that first-round series. He leads the American Hockey League, or is at least tied for the lead in points after 3 games. And granted, a handful of teams haven't played yet, but even still, that's something the Senators need to be proud of, and that's a guy that Belleville will continue to look towards on this chase for the Calder Cup in terms of generating some offense and helping this team to stay competitive.
Yeah, for sure. And we talk about Boko Imama with his depth scoring. Only scoring 3 goals during the season, gets his 4th in that 3rd game. Garrett Pilon's the exact opposite. He's a guy that's been right up there at the top of the scoring leaderboard for the Sens right from pretty much game 1. And, that inspiration that he had from being part of his Calder Cup banner raising ceremony with the Hershey Bears with his old team almost seemed like it sparked something in him, because he had pretty much a career year for the Belleville Sens. We alluded to the stats earlier. But, Garrett Pilon's one of those guys that has the right attitude as well. And he knows what it takes to win now. And he's not going to let guys get out of hand or get a little bit crazy or getting in their heads when they're losing, or when they're struggling, when they have a lead and they lose it. Garrett Pilon's going to be the type of guy that not only leads with his voice, but most importantly, probably leads by example on the ice by scoring big goals and by throwing a big check here and there. And that's what he does, and managing the puck well, which he's done so well this season also, and scoring a beautiful goal off of a cheeky play by Stephen Halliday, just throwing it at the net. Just throw it at the net, get a big rebound out, and Pilon was there to pounce on it, and he did that, and then some.
So let's hear from Garrett Pilon, the American Hockey League's leading point getter in the playoffs, one of them at least after the first-round series.
Pilon scores the game-winning goal here. You won a Calder Cup last season, but where does that moment for a team that has not been there before rank for you?
Oh, it's huge. I think obviously any elimination game that you end up in overtime and you can pull through is obviously a big thing for our group.
How much did your team kind of have to band together there through another up-and-down game and really an up-and-down series?
Yeah, I mean, that's the playoffs. It's always going to be like that. There's highs and lows, and I think you got to stay somewhere in the middle, and I think we did that great. We found our footing again there in overtime, and obviously we got the result that we wanted.
When you kind of let that lead slip away, going to overtime. What was sort of the feeling like in there, Garrett? Was it like stay calm, or was it?
Yeah, I know. I think we had some guys talk up just to make sure we went back to playing the way we were. Obviously, when you get a lead like that and there's, 10 minutes left or so, you almost are just hanging on. And I think that's kind of what we kind of reverted back to. And it's a good learning lesson for us to kind of, keep playing, keep going forward. And, obviously, we kind of just came back to even there.
I said to David Bell, I kind of felt like, did you have this feeling like you'd been the better team through most of the series and you just kind of had to get back to doing what you were doing?
Yeah, I think obviously they had times where they controlled the play, but I think for the most part, our team was pretty confident with the structure we were playing with and the battles and all that. And I mean, it is a 3-game series, and that is such a tough little stretch because anything can really happen with a bad bounce. So I think for us, it was, I think we felt confident in the group, but obviously there's points in the game where they did control the play, and we had to just kind of make sure that we kind of that bend, don't break mentality.
I know David kind of asked this, but what did it mean to score the winning goal in overtime to clinch a series again? And the first series in franchise history.
I mean, it's a huge, obviously, big thing for us, and I obviously, could have been any one of us, I think, for the most part. I think all 4 lines played great tonight, and especially our D, Sogi, everyone. So I think for me, not having your season end is just a huge thing.
Just want to get a thought on the young guys on this team. We talk so much about the veterans like yourself who have the experience, but what about guys like Clevin and Ostapchuk and Halliday, who plays a big role in the overtime winner in their first Calder Cup playoff series?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge, I think, learning thing for them, which is great. I think for them it's great experience, and, I think they all stepped up as well. I mean, Halliday obviously made a great play on that goal, and I think Clev obviously had a great game tonight too. Chucky, everyone. I think they're learning how to play solid hockey, and you really learn how one little mistake can cause you some pretty big downfalls. So.
And you get the Cleveland Monsters in round 2, a team that maybe gave you guys a little bit of trouble, but it's been a long time since you've seen them. How much are you looking forward, and is this team looking forward to showing that group how far this group has come?
Yeah, no, I think we're obviously excited to be moving on, and I think for us we've grown a lot as a team since the last couple times we've seen them. So I think that's a big thing. But obviously we'll go over the tape and look how we need to play against them and come out swinging.
Garrett Pilon, 4 points in the first 3 games for the Belleville Sens of the Calder Cup Playoffs. One of the main factors why Belleville was successful in the series and continues to be, and I don't know how much more we really need to say about him, Brock, because I think we've talked about him a lot this week, almost every week, but perhaps one more thought on just what that kind of experience and impact can mean for this club moving forward.
Yeah, it shows what you got to do to win, and Garrett Pilon knows how to win. He was part of that Bears team last year that won the 2023 Calder Cup. Just outstanding, and he also was a draft pick and seeing Washington win the Stanley Cup, so that's the type of experience that is big for a team like the Sens, who are younger, a little bit on the younger side, but still they have enough vets in there, and Dylan Hetherington, too, is a Calder Cup winner, even though he's not playing in this postseason. But, Garrett Pilon is, you could tell he's a positive guy. He knows when to push the right buttons. Again, he's not going to be the type of guy to be rah-rah and always, talking and talking some more. He's going to be the type of guy that lets his play do the talking, and then if he needs to, he'll give a little nudge, a light little nudge or a little push to a guy beside him to say, listen, you got to pick it up, or here's what you're doing that maybe you could do a little different. Not, putting him down or anything, just talking to him like a teammate would, and that kind of experience, like we say, is so invaluable for young guys like Halliday and Ostapchuk and Clevin et al. To really push ahead and understand that it's not just going to be talent alone that wins it. You're going to have to work at it and put the hard fought effort in, put the nose to the grindstone and get at it, because it's not easy, and it doesn't get any easier from here on out. This best-of-3 series was not easy against Toronto, but this is just the beginning. It's absolutely not easy to play in a postseason series, especially against good teams like Toronto and now Cleveland. Plus, there's going to be even more challenges upcoming. So the Belleville Sens have that right attitude, and they've got the right guys in the room to make this happen.
And with that in mind, let's hear from our last interview of the day, head coach Dave Bell, after the Game 3 win on Sunday. And then we'll take a break and get you set for the next round against the Cleveland Monsters. Here's the coach.
Congrats on the win, Coach, and advancing to round 2. How does it feel?
Well, it feels excellent. I'm super happy for the boys. Like that's a grind. That's kind of been our MO all year, that we don't quit, and nothing's been easy. And we kind of referenced first game of the season. You go into Hershey, the champions, and you win that game. It wasn't easy. You go back-to-back in Roch, win back-to-back. That's not easy. We did it. Went to Syracuse, won back-to-back with a banged-up lineup. That wasn't easy, and we did it. So we knew it wasn't going to be easy. They got some high-character guys over there, and it wasn't. Took 65 minutes to do, and we did it.
How much can you say about Garrett Pilon? Scores 2 big goals, game 2, the overtime winner here in game 3, and we've talked about him a lot. But what else can you say?
Well, it comes as advertised, right? A credit to Ryan Bonus, identified that we needed some guys in here with playoff experience, and what's more than a guy that just fresh off a Calder Cup. And we looked at his stats in the regular season with Hershey last year, were just okay, and then in the playoffs he was almost a point-a-game guy. So that was something that we identified and went and they stepped up and they went and signed him, and here he is again in the playoffs making big plays and scoring big goals.
You had to. What was kind of said when it's 3-3 after 60 minutes? Was it?
Well, just that it's never been easy for our group. We said this morning that our identity as a group is that we don't quit. So it didn't go our way in that third period, and they crawled back in, but we don't quit. So let's just flip the script that it was in Toronto in overtime, and they were fortunately we did.
And one of the things I think you can say is that a lot of this series you were the better team, weren't you?
I think we were. I think, they're a good team, but we played to our identity that we've worked on all year, was heavy and hard and below the goal line, and we executed that. And I think the other thing that we did was, with all the transactions we had this year and all the movement, it was just next man up mentality, and our fourth line scores the first goal of the game, and Stephen Halliday's a huge factor in the game-winning goal. So, that's your so-called fourth line stepping up in a huge game in a huge moment, and that's kind of what our group's done all year.
David, what does this kind of series win do for the people that are prospects in this series? How can going another round help them out?
It's huge. I mean, game 1, Ostapchuk and Clevin scored, so he was really good. Now, you move on, the pressure becomes more, the moment becomes bigger, and that's what guys are looking for us to do. We're looking as an organization to evaluate these guys in the bigger moment, because nothing gets bigger than the NHL playoffs, and that's ultimately where we want to breed these guys to get to be contributors in the NHL playoffs for the Ottawa Senators. So I've been here 5 years, Bruce, and now we can send guys up there that have playoff experience. We haven't been able to do that in the past to help, as good as, Batherson and these guys that were down here. We unfortunately didn't make the playoffs those years. So now those guys go up there, they felt the playoffs and winning in the playoffs and pro, and I think that's a huge piece of their development.
It's a little early, I know, and you just won a series, but what do you anticipate from a team like Cleveland?
Well, they were in first place all year until Columbus got decimated with injuries. So they're deep. They got outstanding goaltending, outstanding depth. They don't play a flashy game, but they play a smart game. They play a safe game. But their goaltenders. He's a real good goalie, Jet Greaves. So we'll look at some more video tomorrow. Superstitiously, I didn't look at any, but I'll be busy tonight and tomorrow morning watching them.
Do you think that the organism, the players and the staff here understand the importance of winning the first series in franchise history?
Well, I certainly know the staff does, because we've sat a lot of long days in that office. But you know what? When you see the passion of Igor after getting us into the playoffs, and then even after that game, they understand it. The Reinhardts and the Sokolovs and the Thompson that have been here through the grind, they appreciate it and they know the importance of it.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks, sir.
All right, guys.
So there's head coach Dave Bell. Again, Bruce Garriock, the other voice on that interview you heard after the Senators knocked off the Toronto Marlies in 3 games of their North Division first-round series. Outstanding series, and Belleville really just had to dig deep to get the job done. They did that. They're off to round 2. And we will see what they can do as we move in to Cleveland coming up this week.
Yeah, and David Bell said it perfectly. He said that not only have we got playoff experience, now we can send guys to Ottawa knowing that they have that experience, and that only bodes well for the whole organization, really. And, of course, you fill in those guys that are down here, those young guys like Cruikshank and Ostapchuk and Clevin et al. Fill them in with guys like Kachuk and Giroux and Stützle and Jake Sanderson and Thomas Chabot as well. And you've got a pretty darn good hockey club. And David Bell was quite proud of. You could sense in his voice too. That was. He's had a lot of pride for this team all season, and this time around, you could tell almost there wasn't so much relief as it was saying that we got one team that's given us somewhat fits all year. Well, we know we can beat them, and we know we can beat this Cleveland Monsters team. And he alluded to it as well. They're a tough team. They don't do anything flashy, but they just work hard, and they manage the puck well, and they play tough, hard-nosed hockey, and that's what the Belleville Sens have done all season as well. So they match up well, Belleville does, and even though one win in 4 regular season games, but the slate gets wiped clean, and they got an opportunity to win 3 games out of 5 to move on and make some more history.
Angus Cruikshank getting on the score sheet for the first time on Sunday in game number 3, assisting on Rourke Chartier's goal that gave Belleville a 2-goal lead. Again, we'll leave you with that clip, and when we come back, we will tee up round number 2 for the Belleville Sens. Round 1 for the regular season division champs, the Cleveland Monsters, our North Division semifinal preview on the way after this break. It's episode 22 of season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Up ahead for Cruikshank. Getting to it before Niemela. Good help from Sokolov. Angus across, they score! Chartier! And it's a 2-goal lead for the Senators.
Rourke Chartier had the goal disallowed last game. There's no doubt on this one. What a pass right across the sweet spot.
Don't miss 1 second of Belleville Senators action this season. The Belleville Sens Entertainment Network is the only place to hear live coverage of the Belleville Senators for all 72 games plus playoffs. Pre-game coverage begins 15 minutes before each game with David Foote, and the network is also home to the Belleville Sens podcast, the Belleville Senators Entertainment Network, presented by Deer Haven Farm and Garden. Tune in on the Belleville Sens app or BellevilleSens.com.
Final segment of episode 22 of season 2 of the Belleville Sens podcast. David Foote and Brock Ormond here. Episode 23 may be posted at a different time next week. The team's going to leave for Cleveland on Monday, and Brock and I will try to hook up to record an episode before Wednesday's Game 3, one way or another. But to make sure you don't miss out, follow the Sens on social media at Belleville Sens. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening as well. And then you can't miss an episode whenever we release them. Thanks again to Dave Bell and Boko Imama and Garrett Pilon for their time after the game on Sunday. Thanks to all the Belleville Sens players for making time for what has been a really increased amount of media requests over the last week and a half, as expected. I think we had 5 or 6 guys doing stuff just on the day of this recording as it is. So really appreciative of those efforts. And hey, when the spotlight starts to get brighter, that's what happens. The media start paying attention.
Exactly, and the guys certainly are well versed to that, so they're going to be making sure to take the time. And of course, I know Starboard Communications, Mark and Charity, they're always real enthusiastic about the Sens. They're always interested in chatting. I know CJBQ, Lauren Brooker, Tim Durkin, our colleague, who's done a great job with all the requests and that. And then you got CKWS Global News in Kingston doing all sorts of great work. It's great to see the interest in this team. And we know the diehard fans have been out all season long, and now it's time to kind of rope in those people that maybe were a little on the fence, still maybe missing some of the old teams in town, but Yeah, the Sens have been great, so no doubt you gotta come and see at least one game on this run here because you never know how far they're going to go.
And if the Toronto Maple Leafs go out to the Boston Bruins, I've been asking the question this week if the Belleville Senators then become Ontario's team in terms of professional hockey teams that are still chasing championships. So everybody all over the province, hey, wherever you're from, you can get on board on this bandwagon. There's more room than not, and the support's been incredible. I mean, just go back on the Belleville Sens social feeds and look at some of the photos from Sunday night. Like, there are some incredible photos that Tim Austin, who was our staff photographer from Freestyle Photography on Sunday, took. It's just amazing to see all the red, black, and white, the jerseys, all three colors, the specialty jerseys. You're really starting to see this team look and feel a little bit more entrenched in the city, and that support is going to be much, much needed as the city of Belleville and the Bay of Quinte, which is about, 100,000 people or so if you take the entire Bay of Quinte region up against the city of Cleveland, which is much bigger. The population of Cleveland, 361,607 as of 2022. CAA Arena, 4,400 seat capacity. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, 19,432 capacity. So these two markets could not be more on opposite ends of the spectrum, let alone the fact that they're literally 7 hours apart by bus on opposite sides of Ontario. But this is, again, one of the things I really like about the AHL is that you can mix big markets and small markets together like this. But it's going to add, I think, just another interesting wrinkle to the series.
For sure, and Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, it's bigger than some NHL rinks, to be quite frank. It's bigger than Winnipeg's rink. It's bigger than believe it's either Colorado or Columbus. And that, fittingly enough, Columbus is Cleveland's NHL parent club. And, they were decimated by injuries this year, too, so the Monsters have really had to deal with that. But now they got everybody back, so they're going to be fully fueled and fully stocked up, ready to go against this Belleville Senators squad. But, Cleveland is an interesting city, too, considering that they've been kind of on the outskirts of talk about an NHL team. But at this point, it seems like the AHL is going to be their thing, and they do support the Monsters really well, sharing the building with the Cavaliers, the NBA team. So it's they're as big time of a team as you're going to get in terms of a lot of fan support, a lot of rink staff support, and resources. But, again, resources don't mean a thing if you can't win. And the Belleville Senators proved that against the Toronto Marlies, a team with much more money, much more resources. And the Belleville Senators just won it by sheer dogged hard work. They put their noses down, their work boots on, their hard hats on, and they went hard to work. And results in a victory. So, the Cleveland and Belleville rivalry, if you will, in the North Division is going to be very interesting. They only played each other 4 times, so that's the thing that's going to be interesting. They haven't played since December as well, and you'll see that as we break down the series preview a little later on today. But, the only team that Belleville didn't have a winning record against outside of the Laval Rockets. So the Cleveland Monsters are a team that, again, play very structured defensively. They're a very, very good team, well-coached team as well. And much like Belleville, not a big offensive group. Do have a couple of 20-goal scorers, but they're going to be grinding it out, and they always seem to be a tough opponent for any team in any part of the AHL to face on this side.
Well, let's run through some of the statistics between Belleville and Cleveland. You mentioned Sens were just 1-3 against the Monsters this year, and I keep saying, we played everybody else in the division at least 6 or 8 times. Outside of Cleveland, who we only played 4 times due to the distance. But you play 4 more games against the Cleveland Monsters, and who knows? Your record could be 500. Your record could be better than that. So, more games against an opponent could certainly change things. And then if you look at the scores of these games, November 10th here in Belleville, 4-2 Monsters. November 12th here in Belleville, 2-1 Senators, an overtime win. That was their only defeat. They go to Cleveland. They get beat 5-1. I can remember that being not one of Belleville's best games of the season. But then they came back the next day and only lost 2-1. Like, the differential in this series was not a lot. These are 2 good defensive teams. Belleville had less goals against in the season than the Cleveland Monsters did. As good of a goaltender as Jet Greaves is, and Malcolm Subban, who is with the Cleveland Monsters as well. Doesn't mean that the Senators can't score enough goals to get the job done if they keep to their defensive structure that they've played so well lately.
Exactly, and the 6 goals in 4 games against Cleveland this year, not exactly what you'd like to see, but like we say, offense can be hard to come by, especially when you get deeper into a series, and because it's only a 5-game series, best of 5, then Belleville, all they got to do is just keep grinding out like they did, and they have the ability, Belleville does, to pull out the offensive sticks when need be. They scored 4 goals in a game, which they did a bit this year, but again, that, like we said, right from the start of the playoffs, that this Belleville Sens team is built to win those low-scoring games, and when the going gets tough, they usually can look to a guy like Garrett Pilon or a Rourke Chartier or a Crookshank or an Ostapchuk even to get a goal, to get a big goal, and the Belleville Sens look to Garrett Pilon. You can't expect him to have to do it every game. You got to have that those depth guys to step in, like a Boko Imama that scored as well in a clinching game. So, the Cleveland Monsters very good defensively, and they got a group that can be tough to beat on the inside. But and the goaltending, of course, when you do beat them on the inside, is really strong as well in the form of Greaves and Malcolm Subban. And great to see him potentially back. Maybe he may get a start in the second round series. We don't know, but but the Belleville Sens have just as good a goaltending down there to match well with them in terms of Mads Sogard, and then if he falters, you got Kevin Mandalese. If he falters, you got Levi Marilainen. And so that's an embarrassment of riches for the Belleville Senators goaltending-wise.
Embarrassment of riches is also what the Columbus Blue Jackets sent back to Cleveland at the end of their season, and just the names that are back from the NHL. Trey Fix-Wolanski, who even being up and down to the National Hockey League this year, finished 13th in AHL scoring with 60 points. They also sent back James Malatesta, who had a good season against Belleville. The young defenseman who turns a lot of heads, David Juracek, is back. Luca Del Bel-Belouz, the former Mississauga Steelhead, is back from the NHL, along with Nick Blankenberg as well, plus the goaltenders that Brock mentioned. So the reinforcements have come for the Cleveland Monsters, but the reinforcements for Belleville have been here for a couple weeks. The Senators have been playing playoff hockey officially for a little over a week, unofficially for probably a month and a half. The Cleveland Monsters haven't played in probably a week and a half. So do you see any edge for the Senators in terms of that? Cleveland's got to drive first. They've got to not only shake the bus legs, but the rust of being off for a week and then deal with what's becoming a hostile environment here at CAA Arena.
Yeah, so an interesting choice, too, that Cleveland made by electing, even with home ice advantage, to go with 2 games on the road and then have a chance at potentially 3 clinching games all at home. So it's not a bad strategy, but they got to be up and at it early, because if they don't, then the Belleville Sens will eat them alive, because they did a good job of playing structured hockey, taking away a lot of the middle of the ice from the Toronto Marlies. Every goal the Marlies scored was basically break down, put down low, put the puck up high, get a long shot through, and then see what happens. So if the Belleville Sens can really box in and contain guys like Trey Fix-Wolanski, who's so shifty on the ice, leading point getter with 60 this year in 58 games for Cleveland, and Owen Sillinger, another guy that's been so tough. Del Bel-Belouz, another shifty guy. Brendan Gaunce, too, we know from the Bulls, Belleville Bulls, huge size.
Yeah, but I think he's hurt. He's not on the playoff roster, which I noticed when I was doing some game prep yesterday. So bad news for the former Bulls captain, good news for the Belleville Senators, who won't have to deal with him, it seems.
Yeah, that's right. So it's another a missed opportunity offensively for Cleveland. So that's going to be another thing they have to kind of overcome and smooth over. But, absolutely, the travel is going to be tough, and not having played in a long while for Cleveland, sometimes that works out in your favor because you get more time to work on things, but other times guys just want to get to playing and get to action, and not all the time. You see, like when you see guys or when you see teams having to have that layoff or that delay, the bye to the next round, sometimes it can be tough to shake those legs out. And so the Belleville Senators, actually, who have been going nonstop for the past, like you say, month and a half or so, basically playing what amounted to for their season. And they get in against Toronto Marlies, an emotional series. They win out of that. And then they go in and play Cleveland. So they're already going at full 100% tilt. So sometimes that can be a blessing, not a curse. And the Cleveland Monsters are going to have the rust to work out. And they're going to have to just survive those first 10, 15 minutes or so of game number 1 against Belleville, because if they can do that, they'll be in a good spot. But the Belleville Senators, just for them, strategy is just to push them hard right off the bat. Just push them hard and give them a difficult push, a difficult time, and start just pelting Jack Greaves like they did in Game 1 against Toronto. 38 shots total on Dennis Hildeby, and they came out flying. And even that first goal, which was kind of a fluky or chintzy one, it still worked out for Bell because they kept just piling the chances on Hildeby, and that's exactly the strategy they need to implement and employ if they want to try and win against Cleveland.
Angus Crookshank was Belleville's top performer against the Monsters in the regular season. 2 goals, 2 assists over 4 games. Josh Curry had 2 points, a goal and an assist in 3 games. Igor Sokolov, a goal and an assist in 4 games. So we'll look for some of those guys maybe to get hot and start to add to what's been a pretty solid offense to start the playoffs. As Brock mentioned, Belleville scored at least 3 goals in all 3 games of the first round. And for a team that didn't score a pile in the regular season, that's one bright spot to certainly focus on moving in to round number 2 for the Belleville Senators, the North Division semifinals for everybody. Quick thought on the North Division semifinals. On the other side, Rochester jumps out to a 1-0 lead against Syracuse. The Crunch come back and even things at 1. It's kind of odd that series has already started and is already 2 games deep. But who do you like coming out of that side of the bracket?
Yeah, both teams, they were close right from the outset. Cleveland did win the North Division, but they shaded. Like it was tied in points with the Rochester Americans, 88 points between the two. And at the end of the day, it resulted in the Cleveland head-to-head record against Rochester, and regulation victories ended up being the difference maker in Cleveland taking that first spot. So it's definitely not going to be an easy situation or an easy thing to pick, but yeah, Rochester and Syracuse tied at 1 after 2. That's about what we'd expect, and of course Syracuse ended up winning in overtime in game number 2. Both those teams play a very similar style, again, very fast and a lot of offensive skill. Belleville was able to contain Syracuse for much of the season, winning 7 of 8, and they had a bit of a tougher time with Rochester, but yeah, the Americans and Crunch, that's a good series. That's a good best-of-5 series, a good solid bit of AHL playoff hockey, and so it's tough to say, but I think the Rochester Americans seem like they were surging towards the end of the season, and again, doesn't always mean they're going to win, but the Syracuse Crunch had their ups and downs towards the end of the year, and the Rochester Americans, I think, may have just a little bit better of a shot to pull it out. Seth Appert has done an incredible job coaching that Rochester team, and he's got them all rolling. And for a lot of these guys, they'll be maybe Buffalo Sabres next year and finally help that team get over the hump. So I'd say Rochester, and it's probably going to go the distance, 5 games.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assumption, and I think the Senators will be hoping it goes the distance because they'll want it to be finishing as close to the time as their series with Cleveland finishes, and not have somebody, as is the case now, have a little bit more rest. Maybe they'll be a little more even going into round 3. But we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Game number 1 of the North Division semifinal between Belleville and Cleveland is on Wednesday, May 1st at CAA Arena. 7 o'clock puck drop. Game 2 is on Friday, May 3rd. Tickets are available now at the Belleville Sens box office at CAA Arena, Ticketmaster.ca, or BellevilleSens.com. You can also email tickets at BellevilleSens.com if you're interested in premium or group experiences for Games 1 and 2. Games 3 through 5 in Cleveland. Game 3, Wednesday, May 8th for sure. The other games tentatively scheduled for Friday, May 10th and Sunday, May 12th. Stay tuned to the Belleville Sens social feeds for more info on if those dates change. Look, I said it on TSN 1200 the other day. The Cleveland Monsters are a good team, but the Toronto Marlies were a good team, and the Belleville Senators are a good team. And if we've learned anything about the North Division, Brock, it's that anything can happen here, and anything could happen for the Belleville Senators if they keep doing what they've been doing for the last 8-9 months.
Absolutely, and there was only 6 points separating Cleveland and Belleville as well in the North Division standing. So it's not like it's going to be a massive upset if Belleville beats the Monsters, although, like I said, you got to respect Cleveland. They're a good, well-structured, well-coached team. But David Bell said, yeah, all they got to do is just wear them down below, just play their game and do better at it than them. That's all it takes, and start just piling shots on Jack Greaves, get in his kitchen, and make his life very miserable. And you should be in a good spot. But, yeah, like I said, if the Belleville, I'm making the mark now, if the Belleville Senators win this series, don't call it an upset, because this Sens team is not an underdog at all. They've been facing a lot of adversity this year, but they're no underdog. They're a team that can win with the best and play with the best at any given time of the year.
You can get geared up for the Calder Cup playoffs as well. 25% off select items at the Belleville Sens locker room store, and all purchases in-store and online get a free Belleville Sens flag. So stop by the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center or head to shop.bellevillesens.com and get yourself loaded up for games 1 and 2 of the North Division semifinals between Belleville and Cleveland. That'll do it for us on this episode. Thanks again to Brock Ormond co-hosting, and to those folks we talked to earlier on, Dave Bell and Garrett Pilon and Boko Imama. We'll leave you with Pilon's overtime winner, the biggest goal in Belleville Sens history, to round out episode 22. Overtime number 1. Imama tips it for an oncoming Halliday. Halliday's in with a shot. Rebound! Scored! Garrett Pilon in overtime! The Sens win the series!
Heroes! We talk about them. Who better? Who more fitting? He holds himself to the highest